The Rohingya refugee crisis has countries all over the world taking a stand. Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi is under immense pressure to take substantial action to end the violence in the Rakhine state and look into the refugee issue. As the Rohingya refugees flee from Myanmar amid continuing violence in the Rakhine state, the country's de facto leader and Nobel Peace Laureate Suu Kyi is expected to address the country for the very first time on this issue. Her decision to speak on the crisis comes in after international condemnation on Rohingyas and their condition. She has a tough task ahead to calm a global outrage, some frustrated neighbors and Myanmar's army, which is again showing teeth. This comes after Myanmar's Army Chief General Min Aung Hlaing urged the country to unite on this issue. He has said that the group has no roots in the country. After taking office in 2016, Suu Kyi is Myanmar's first civilian leader. She has since focused her energy on the delicate political balance between her civilian government and the army generals. Now on Tuesday, the Nobel laureate will give the biggest speech of her time in office. In an interview to the BBC, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said that the stakes were high for Suu Kyi's speech. In fact, he called it a last chance to stop the unfolding humanitarian calamity. Earlier, Aung San Suu Kyi did not give a straight answer on the Rohingya crisis. This is what she said while she addressed the media earlier this month.
We have to take care of our citizens. We have to take care of everybody who is in our country, whether or not they are our citizens. It is our duty, and we try our best. Of course, our resources are not as complete and adequate as we would like them to be, but still we try our best, and we want to make sure that everyone is entitled to the protection of the law.
Now, the United Nations says around 409,000 Rohingyas have fled violence in Myanmar and are now in neighboring Bangladesh, living in camps in dire conditions. Suu Kyi will also have to calm nerves of neighboring Bangladesh. The country has been overwhelmed with more than 400,000 Rohingya refugees who fled their homes in Myanmar and taken shelter in bordering areas of Bangladesh. Prime Minister there, Sheikh Hasina, she had slammed Myanmar for atrocities during a visit to border camps just last week. She will now address the annual UN gathering in New York, and she is expected to take up the Rohingya issue at the world stage. Also, there are reports of Suu Kyi skipping the UNGA due to domestic compulsions.
Myanmar government, they should have handled this situation patiently. They should not have allowed the army or their law enforcement agency to attack the common people. What is the crime of the children or women or the innocent people? Because these people, innocent people, the children, women, they are suffering. So these people, they belong to Myanmar. Hundreds years they are staying there. How they can deny that they are not their citizens?
All right, and joining me to talk more about this is our Dhaka Bureau Chief Saad Hamadi. Saad, thanks so much for joining us. We understand that Bangladesh is one country that is directly bearing the brunt of what's happening in the Rakhine state in neighboring Myanmar. Give us a sense of how much further is Bangladesh willing to go? 400,000 Rohingya refugees, that's a big number.
So, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has said that if Bangladesh can accommodate and feed its people, about 160 million of them, 700,000 or 800,000 Rohingyas, the country can afford to take care of until a resolution is brought in place. But that is not a solution. A political solution has to be met out between Myanmar and Bangladesh, given that Bangladesh is bearing the brunt in such large numbers of migrants seeking refuge in the country. There were 409,000, as you've already said, of these Rohingya minority groups seeking refuge in the bordering regions across Cox's Bazar where I've traveled. The Save the Children just today have said that many of these Rohingyas will be dying as a result of the scarcity of food and the hygiene factors that is lacking in these camps, that are makeshift camps that they're building across these places. And that's it's a terrible situation out there where I've traveled and I've seen the situation that they're living in without food, without proper sanitation. It's going to be a misery if it's not handled carefully. The humanitarian efforts that are being carried out, the relief efforts that are being carried out are not well coordinated. It's a large number, and these organizations reaching out there, despite their humanitarian concerns, are not able to help much, given that it's a large number of people jumping onto these trucks and to the people bringing in this relief, and that's not really bringing much of a solution at this time.
Absolutely. Sir, do stay with me. Subir Bhaumik, consulting editor of Mizima. He joins me live from Kolkata at this point. Mr. Bhaumik, thanks so much for joining me. What do you think? What are the expectations from Suu Kyi now, day after tomorrow, when she addresses the media for the first time, addresses the issue of Rohingyas directly? What can one expect from Aung San Suu Kyi, given the condition of the Rohingyas and the neighbours doing all that they can to contain the situation, but for the moment?
Well, what can you expect from somebody who is herself in deep trouble? She's caught between the devil and the deep sea. One has to remember that Aung San Suu Kyi went against the advice of her army, or rather overruled her army, when trouble happened last year in October, November, and she set up the Kofi Annan Commission, 6 of them foreigners, only 3 from Myanmar. Finally, when they came up with a report which talks about rehabilitation, which talks about giving Rohingyas citizenship, verification, speeding up the verification for that purpose, inter-ethnic dialogue, and everything that would indicate, some kind of an effort to bring things under control in Rakhine. At that very moment, you have the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army attacking 30 police stations, and the spiral of violence. Then the army steps in and says, we are going to handle, this is a national security problem. Right. So who torpedoed the peace process? The peace process was torpedoed by ARSA at the behest of Pakistan. We have enough evidence of their links to ISI. The point I'm trying to make here is, since then, Suu Kyi has made 1 or 2 efforts when she has given some statement to get back this whole process of, initiating a, peace dialogue and other efforts on the basis of the Commission's report, on the basis of Kofi Annan Commission report. But at the moment, what she is going to do, I think she has only 3 options left, very little actually space. One is she has to keep her own army happy. Right. She has to keep her own, the Burmese nationalist sentiment happy. Right. Otherwise, she is a politician. Second. Also, she has to manage relations with Bangladesh and India, both very upset about the continuous spillover. So what she has to do is that, and I hope she's going to say something about this, is that she is going to cap the mindless reprisals of the Burmese army in that area. She has to get these, revenge-hungry Burmese soldiers
that's crucial, of course. A couple of things to be watched out for. But New Delhi's continuing dilemma of balancing its interests between Bangladesh and Myanmar, it continues on the Rohingya crisis. During Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Myanmar, the joint statement reflected India's stand with the government in fighting terror. However, 2 days later, the Ministry of External Affairs said that Myanmar has every right to fight terror within their own country, but their terror problem cannot become India's refugee problem, which it will if Bangladesh is unable to cope with it. Adding to the complications for the Modi government is the Ministry of Home Affairs moving to deport 40,000 Rohingyas who fled to India during the violence in 2012. The Prime Minister has to now define a clear policy related to the Rohingya crisis. In the long run, New Delhi's stand to keep both countries at ease may not work. But the problem in having a clear-cut policy will mean India alienating either Suu Kyi or Sheikh Hasina. This will clearly give Beijing an upper hand in siding with the country that New Delhi does not back. Saad, very quickly, if you can tell us, for the moment, Bangladesh is continuing to take in the refugees, but there's also been a statement saying that there will be no more refugees, though they're planning to give them shelter in refugee camps for the moment. But they've also said that they will not be welcoming refugees endlessly.
So the question of not welcoming refugees, there is hardly any number that we know of about how many refugees or how many Rohingya minority lives on the other end in Myanmar. Right. It's a substantial number already. It's about 800 to 900,000 Rohingyas in unofficial estimates who now reside in Bangladesh. So we have been told that about 1 million is the population size of the Rohingya community in Myanmar. Now, we don't know which is the exact number, if it's the current population size or is it the entire population. If that is the case, there are hardly 100,000 or maybe more in the other side. But irrespective of that, the borders are open. There are migrants coming in, refugees coming in every passing day.